It's time to share secrets and insights from fellow entrepreneurs. If you're looking to grow or start a business and you're a game changer, then keep listening to Avanti Entrepreneur for great advice from your host, Dave Mammano, America's entrepreneur coach.
Hey, Avanti Tribe, Dave Mammano here. Just want to thank our sponsor, Paychex. You know, Paychex, they make it simple for businesses of all sizes to pay and manage their team. They make payroll easy with employee pay options, including direct deposit, checks, pay cards, and so much more. Founded over 4 decades ago to relieve the complexity of running a business so that the owners can focus on what matters most. Above all else, and more than any other company, Paychex makes it simple. Visit AvantiEntrepreneurGroup.com. Go to our partner link and check them out. They're offering you a free month of payroll just for giving them a shot as an Avanti Tribe member. Give them a shot, folks. They really help this podcast to be possible. Really appreciate Paychex. Now, enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome to the Avanti Entrepreneur Podcast. I am Dave Mammano, your host, and we are here to help achievers and business leaders and business owners and just people in general. Helping to move forward, because that's what Avanti means. And we want to help them to move forward so that they can reach their potential. We love helping people reach their potential. That's what we do. And the way I do this is I interview just rock star business movers and shakers. Today I have in the show an awesome rock star, Danny Schuman. Danny, welcome to the show.
Hello, David. It is great to be here with you and the Avanti Network.
Awesome to see you again. So
Yes.
I gotta tell the Avanti Tribe about who you are and why should they care? How's that sound?
Okay, perfect.
Right? That's what you do in advertising, right?
You got it. Yep.
All right, there we go. So when Danny Schuman lost his ad agency job in 2018, December 2008, during the worst economic downturn in the past 75 years, he channeled his passion to solve problems and create ideas to become a different type of entrepreneur. With no formal business training and very little business ability, Danny launched a successful marketing consultancy within a year of his layoff. And 10 years later, his business is still going strong. He has shared that terrible but wonderful model for success in his new book called The Worst Business Model in the World, a new kind of guide for a new kind of entrepreneur. It's an easy to digest, non-businessy business book and a roadmap to pursuing your dreams. As Danny grew Twist and further developed the worst business model concept, he plugged into Chicago's entrepreneurial community, connect with other founders, and studied their business opportunities and challenges. He interviewed more than 100 entrepreneurs and began speaking, teaching, and workshopping at Chicago Ideas Week, Northwestern University, the University of Chicago, Tech Incubator 1871, as well as many co-working spaces and entrepreneurial associations. Prior to launching Twist, Danny spent many years as a copywriter and creative director at top Chicago advertising agency, working in accounts like Coors Light and Gatorade. Danny and Michael Jordan worked together on 10 commercial shoots over 16 years. Michael called Danny Peanut Butter Jelly Boy, and your bio says that's a story for another time, but this is another time, so we're going to hear that story.
We're going to do it.
Danny is a rabid baseball fan and specifically a Cubs fan.
Yes.
And he regularly rewatches Game 7 of the 2016 World Series.
True.
He's been to 35 past and present Major League ballparks. A University of Michigan graduate, Danny and his wife live in the Chicago suburbs and love being empty nesters, but don't tell their kids that. Danny, again, welcome to the show.
Thank you, David. That was much shorter on paper, but I appreciate you reading the whole thing.
Hey, I'm here for you. So full disclosure, Avanti Tribe, we had Danny as a speaker here in lovely Rochester, New York, a couple months ago. Super fantastic. And he's not your average speaker. You know, most speakers purport to come in and be an expert on something. Danny basically came in and said, hey, you know what? I pretty much didn't know anything, and I found my way, and that was the right way for me. Now, the guy that works 24/7 and wants to, sleep at the office, we may poo-poo that lifestyle, but you know what? If it's working for him, that's his way. And so I really liked your open-mindedness about that. Everybody has their own path. Let's respect it. We all know a lot less than we think we know.
For sure, yeah.
But by talking to people and just continuing along the path, we find our way if we're committed, right? So,
yeah, absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
Danny, we heard a little bit about your story in the bio. Would love to hear, as we talked about before, the elevator pitch of your journey so far.
Yeah, and you covered a lot of it. So I'm going to just fill in a couple holes, and we can get to the meat of the discussion. But I'm a writer. I was born a writer. I was probably a writer in utero, high school, college, and after college. Thankfully, there's this thing called an advertising agency that pays writers to write for a living, and I did that for 23 years, as you said. Michael Jordan on Gatorade, a lot of brands that you, David, might have even consumed in the past day or two, like Quaker Oatmeal, Tropicana, Aquafina, Quaker Oatmeal, and of course, Gatorade.
And Coors.
And Coors Light, which, you've been known to have a couple. So in December of 2008, to be exact, December 1st of 2008, I lost my job as a result of some agency challenges and conflicts. Our agency went from 230 people to 70 people in 9 months. And I was one of the people who lost their jobs. And I say, luckily, I was one of the people who lost their jobs. Even though 818,000 people lost their jobs that month, it was the biggest job loss in the entire recession. And knowing absolutely nothing about business and no ability to start a business, no formal business training, I decided to go off on my own. I did not want to go back and work for the man or the woman. I wanted to see if I could make it on my own. So I suppose I was kind of an accidental entrepreneur, a reluctant entrepreneur, but I always worked very hard, whether I worked for a big company or on my own. So the one thing I do know how to do really, really well is create a brand. I'm a branding guy. I'm a marketing guy. So the very first thing I did was create the brand Twist, because I come from the creative side, but I learned a ton about marketing strategy from my very generous clients at Gatorade and other brands. And I opened my business as a strategic consultancy. We were called Twist because we put a creative twist on strategy. So we created the Twist logo and the brand identity and all the things that really look great. And then I had to figure out how to create the business around that. And over the years, I made my way. I had a good enough network from my agency days to be able to have a good base of clients. And the very first few years when people said to me, how are you doing this on your own? And I would usually say, I'm not really sure. I think I must have the worst business model in the world, because I had no retainer clients. I had no agency of record clients. I had no contract basis clients. So I only worked on a project basis. I had no guaranteed monthly or annual or bi-weekly, bi-monthly income. It was all project basis. I had to hustle my butt off to always be getting new work. But the great thing about it was I always had new projects. I always had new problems to solve. I was always meeting new people. And therefore, I was always expanding my network, because I was being able to meet new people, work for them, do good work for them, and have them either rehire me and or connect me to new people. So that's the tall building version of the agency days through the early years of Twist, leading up to the writing and publication of the book.
That was the Sears Tower elevator version, right? So, yeah.
A little, maybe the Hancock, but okay.
Maybe the John Hancock. Is it still the Sears Tower in Chicago?
It is not. No, it's been the Willis Tower for many years. And so, which doesn't even matter now because Sears is, going bankrupt. So.
Oh, I know. So getting back to your journey. So on December 1st, 2008, you got laid off. And, if you had vision for the future, you would have been like, oh my God, this is awesome. But how did you feel at that moment? I mean, like, what was your world kind of like devastated at that day? I mean, were you kind of like hitting the head with a baseball bat?
Yeah, I mean, I was pissed off, and I think a combination of in a fog and pissed off. Our kids were pretty little then. I went home, we had dinner, we put the kids to bed, and I didn't tell my wife until the kids were sleeping and we were laying in bed next to each other. And I was like, honey, something happened at work today. And so definitely a bit of a fog. Be laid off at that time. There's a lot of weirdness going around, and there was a lot of other things that I always thought that were going to be happening other than me getting laid off at the time. So it was a little bit of a surprise. It wasn't a shock because we had lost so much business, but honest to God, Dave, that's a great question, because I think the thing that motivated me more than anything else at the beginning was I was mad and I was angry, and it wasn't at my company, because they were a great company, and the people who laid me off were really genuinely, sincerely good people. And they created a great layoff process. But I was just mad at, I guess, what I felt like a bit of a failure. Like since I didn't survive, I guess I kind of felt like I didn't succeed. And so it was really kind of like the early months and years was kind of like my revenge journey on the world, to do a little bit of, I'm going to show you type thing. It's not, I don't know if that's a good way to start a business or not, but it certainly motivated me.
It's the worst way to start a business.
Well, that's why I have the worst business model in the world. Honest to God, I had no plan. I just said, I think I can do this. I think I have enough broad skills. Like, I'm not just a writer. I'm not just a strategist. I think I can do a lot of different things. And I really think I can help people and add value to their business.
Two, and if you're watching this on video, I'm showing your awesome book right now, which is called The Worst Business Model in the World. So anybody that showed up at the Avanti event here in Rochester a couple months ago was able to purchase this book. It is super fantastic. I have highlighted the stuff, and I'm just going to brag for a second. Danny even signed it for me. So if you want to watching this on video, it shows you what a VIP I am.
Yes, big man.
Thank you for that. Yeah, big man in my spare time.
Yeah.
But there are a few things I want to ask you about, right? Every chapter is fantastic.
Thank you.
But I want to ask you a couple things, well, more than a couple, more like 10.
Okay, cool.
Tell me, and I already know this because I was at your event, tell our listeners, what is a UDOT? UDOT, folks. UDOT.
UDOT is an acronym for us doing our thing. UDOTs, us doing our thing. And it describes the group of people who are out here, as I motion to my co-working space, on our own, who are good at what we do, passionate about it, care about it, have expertise around it, but either don't necessarily have the business skills to make it successful, don't necessarily have the time to make it successful, or maybe don't even have the interest to make it successful, to do the work to make it successful. It's about, so being a UDOT, being someone who is out here doing our thing, is about being able to practice what we're good at and make a good living at it. And it isn't necessarily about becoming the next Mark Zuckerberg, internet unicorn, multi-gazillion dollar valuation, as much as I love what I do, I'm good at it, I just want to make a good living. And that's what being a UDOT is all about.
I love it. Remember Stuart Smalley on Saturday Night Live?
I'm good enough. I'm smart enough.
and gosh darn it, people like me.
I do remember him.
I do remember that. Yep. So, no, that's fantastic. It is an individual path. You talk later in the book about comparing yourself to others. And, if I compare myself to Mark Zuckerberg, I am a complete loser, moron, failure, right? But I don't compare myself to him because I am not him at all. I'm Dave Mammano. I'm doing it my way, and I'm helping people in my way, and I'm making an impact in my way. So I compare myself to myself. Am I being the best person that I can be for myself and therefore others? And I think that's what your point is, right?
Yeah. Comparisons will kill you is one of the chapters.
Yep.
And it's so just to, and you may be asking me about this in a little bit, but I'll maybe get a little bit ahead of you. So there are basically 5 paths, 5 chapters. Each chapter is called a woo. Woo, of course, is a way that UDOTs win, ways UDOTs win. And so of the 5 chapters, the first 2 are about trust. They're about trusting yourself, and they're about trusting the world. And figuring prominently into trust is not comparing yourself to others. It's having an implicit and untestable, undying confidence in yourself and the value that you bring to the world. It's about not necessarily feeling like people, like you're lucky to get a job or a project if someone hires you, but that they are lucky to have hired you and they've gotten you on that project. It's not being overcome by doubt, but having ass-kicking confidence at every step, even when it's most counterintuitive, potentially, even when things aren't so good. That's the easiest time to sit in a coffee shop and be nursing your little coffee and seeing someone else with a venti latte caramel macchiato, double, triple shot and saying turbo, and saying, what does that person have that I don't have? Well, how come he or she can order that giant, amazing, wonderful, world's best coffee, and I'm here with my little regular coffee? And the truth is, it's made up. It's a myth.
Yep.
When you compare yourself to other people, you're only hurting yourself. And it's exactly as you say, only compare yourself to yourself.
Yep, love it. What's that? The famous cartoon, I think Albert Einstein used to use it when it was, it's a whole bunch of animals, right? And one of them is a fish. And it's all right, I'm gonna judge your ability on being a great animal on how you can climb that tree.
You're right.
Like, a bear and other animals, there's a fish, right? So the fish Not going to climb the tree, but is it still a great animal? Absolutely, right?
Yeah. A fish in water is different than a fish out of water.
Exactly. So another thing you talk about in the book is don't tell yourself the same sad story. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, it's so easy to get caught up in stories. We tell ourselves stories, right? We're able to make stories up about ourselves, about the world, about factors that we have no control over, and being able to tell yourself a good story versus a sad story. So what's a good story? A good story is a reminder of a success that you've had. It's a reminder of a way that you did something in a way that worked. We're so good at when something good happens to us, kind of just leaving it behind and moving forward, and not necessarily thinking about what we did to make that good reaction and action happen. We don't necessarily consciously think about what we did, that story that we tell ourselves. I did this in this example, in this situation. I should probably do that again. And so in those times when things are tough, when business is slow, when that project you were 100% certain was going to come through, at the very last minute, they tell you it went to somebody else. And it can be hard to really kind of pump yourself up. And it can be easy to tell yourself the story, I suck, I'm never going to get another job. This project's never going to come. Where is my next work going to come from if I didn't get this one? Bad stories. Don't tell yourself those stories.
Yep.
Tell yourself good stories. It's all, to me, a big part of success is all about the stories that you tell yourself.
And it gets back to a lot of the great speakers and books. Basically you become what you think about, right?
Yeah.
I think the first guy to say it on record was Aristotle, right? And then, Earl Nightingale brought it back years later, and the book, The Secret, and Think and Grow Rich, and the book Psycho-Cybernetics. And it's all very similar philosophies, is like, change the record in your head. Picture your life being awesome. What does it look like specifically?
Yeah.
And the universe has a way of pulling you there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when you got let go, if you just continued to think that, you were a loser and were pissed off, you probably would have just got another job, and who knows where you would have been here all these years later. But that's a different idea.
That's a really interesting point, because there was a shortish time there where it was hard for me to actually drive by my building and see it, because it just either made me pissed off or sad. And you're right, that is a bad way to start a business. And I think that things really started to turn around for me more positively when I shook that off, and when I wasn't feeling that anymore, because it's obviously not positive, but it's not a good, it's The Secret. It's just what you say. Mm-hmm. It's what you put out there will come back.
Yep. Very good.
Yeah.
So you also talk about being the first you, which I love. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So Be the First You is a chapter about, I'll tell you a story around it. So I have a good friend who's, very sadly no longer with us, but an incredible author named Amy Krauss Rosenthal, who wrote many, many, many kids' books. I bet there are young parents out there who have little kids who have tons of her books in their house. And she was an advisor to me and a friend. And when I started writing this book, she said, tell me a little bit about your book. And I said, well, it's kind of like if you took a Dan Pink and a Malcolm Gladwell and you kind of mixed them together. And she looked at me and just like her jaw dropped. And she said, well, why don't you make this book, why don't you make it a Danny Schuman? And I thought to myself, and sometimes the most insightful things are so obvious. It's like, and that set me down a completely and totally different path. It doesn't mean that I can't borrow from Malcolm Gladwell and borrow from Dan Pink. Pablo Picasso borrowed from 17th century Japanese painters, and the Beatles borrowed from Chuck Berry and Elvis Presley and Carl Perkins. So Be the First You is about potentially borrowing things that inspire you, but not letting them make you crazily insane and jealous. Look at them, admire them. Don't let them make you crazy. Let them inspire you so you can kind of take that genius and make it your own.
Love it. Love it. Danny, who you remind me of?
Don't say Danny Partridge.
No, not at all. Oh, I wasn't. No. Oh, look at that. No. I was going to say Danny Schuman. How do you like that?
Oh, I like it way better.
Come on.
Way better.
Danny. That's like people telling me that I remind them of Screech. Hey, thank you. Appreciate it.
Oh, ouch. Okay. Yeah. Not me. I've never made that connection.
If you see my high school picture, you would. I'll put it that way.
Okay. That was a long time ago.
Long time ago.
Yeah.
No, just 5 years ago, as far as you know. So another chapter I enjoyed and this goes back to maybe the OJ period.
Yeah.
If it doesn't fit, quit. Tell me about that.
Yeah, that was the title was a little bit borrowed from the OJ period for sure. So this is about making sure that you're putting yourself in a position to do the best work possible at all times. And there will be times when you'll get a call or an email with the possibility of doing this work or that work, and a potential project that you kind of think, I can probably figure this out, but the back of your head, you're thinking, I'm not an expert. This isn't necessarily in my wheelhouse. And so the story I tell in the book is about the one time in 10 years when this happened, and it ended disastrously because I took it on. And to be honest, they kind of convinced me that they thought I could do it too, but I knew better. And halfway through the project, in the middle of a get-together with 60 people that I was facilitating, and I didn't know the answers to any of the questions that people were asking. My face turned redder than an apple in an orchard. They fired me. They fired me after that meeting. Yeah. And so I lost money, which wasn't that big a deal, but I lost respect, and I lost the idea that people had a value in me. I lost future relationships with that client, and it was a mess. And it would have been far better served if I had said to them at the outset, you know what, I know this isn't exactly for me. I bet I can think of a couple people who this might be better for, which A, buys you all kinds of good karma in the world. It gives them someone great who they'll have a great experience with. It gives you great karma with the person who you refer that job to. And it frees you up as an opportunity cost to pursue the next great opportunity that will be way better for you. So if it doesn't fit, quit. Just don't do it.
Well, it's and the way you phrase that was great, because some people say it wasn't a good fit, I had to fire them. And I like to reverse that and say, I had a coaching client once, and good guy, just oil and water. And so I fired myself. I didn't fire him. I fired myself. I took it upon myself. What is my role? And I said, I'm not the right guy for this guy.
Yeah.
And I wished him well, and I said, I'm not the right guy for you, and I helped him find some other people.
Yeah.
So think about that. Think about firing yourself if it's not a good fit, right?
Yeah, and so when that can be not that hard when things are good and you're really busy. That's really hard when things are not busy and things are not good. And at that time for me, I was really slow with business, and I took it on. But what I'd say about that is, and it's another chapter in the book, that there's always something around the corner. There's always something around the corner. And I think if you have faith that it's out there and you put the vibe out there of the kind of project that you want, combined with serious hard work and hustle, then I have so much confidence that passing on that one thing will lead to something else great.
When one door closes, another opens, right?
127.5%.
Wow, that much.
That much.
That's a lot.
Yes, that's a lot. That's way more than 102.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
So my favorite chapter, because anybody who knows me knows that I'm a hugger, right? And not everybody's a hugger. Sometimes I find that out the hard way.
Yeah.
But so you have a chapter actually called Hug a Client.
Yes.
So of course I want you to tell me about that chapter.
Yeah. I mean, for some people like you, I think this is obvious because there's nothing better in the world for an entrepreneur or a small business person than your client. But some people lose sight of that. Clients are our lifeblood. Our network is probably our lifeblood, but clients is where we get our money from. And so sometimes it sounds crazy, but sometimes we need to be reminded to, not just do the work, but build the relationship and get close to clients and find a way to genuinely like them. And don't, I think of Mad Men, I talk about Mad Men in the book and how Don Draper, if you watch the show, clients were just like the devil to him. They were alive to ruin his life, basically. And it's the work he was doing was a gift for them. You know what? The gift is your client and the work that they're giving to you. So if it's a difficult client, I would guess that you, Dave, equally hug difficult clients and great, easy clients. It doesn't matter. And so you just have to remember to remind yourself of that fairly obvious and simple thing. It's do everything you can to genuinely love your clients.
I am an equal opportunity hugger. So,
somehow I don't find that hard to believe.
In fact, my book, you may know, is called Make Love in the Workplace. Now,
an excellent book, by the way.
Well, thank you. It is about workplace culture, folks.
I wish I had a copy of it with me, but I do have a copy of it.
Well, I have one over my bookshelf there, but so and it is about workplace culture. But and in today's world, I don't know if I could have used that title.
Yeah.
I wrote it 4 years ago, a little more tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I mean, not only clients, but your team. Hug your team. Hug your vendors. Who hugs the vendors, right?
I love that. Hug a vendor.
If you're doing a good job for your client and they give you a hug and say, Danny, thank you so much. This has like been excellent. That you probably would take that maybe over $100 bill, I'm guessing, right? Just like
I think that would turn into 5 $100 bills. So I would totally take it over $100 bill.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
very cool. So another chapter that kind of has a funny name, and I feel like doing this every day being an entrepreneur, get professional help. What do you mean
boy.
by that?
Yeah. I mean, well, for some people, it's easy to just feel like, I got this, I got this. This is what I do. And someone else is just going to mess things up. And there's something about having a partner, and I've never had a full-time partner, but when it comes to people who have areas of expertise that can help you out in ways that you can't normally get the job done yourself, it's so crucial. And I talk in the book about loyalty, and there's something I want. So loyalty is such a great gap bridger. It helps people with different areas of expertise come together. It helps you have people in times of need who are there for you. When I say times of need, I mean kind of professional need. It's kind of like why I've gone to the same guy who's cut my hair forever. Because if I really need a haircut and it's a Sunday and they have suddenly a meeting out of the blue comes up on a Monday, he will be there for me. Same with the guy who edits my commercials. Same with a woman who looks over my proposals and helps me with my financials. Same with other business partners that I have. So yes, play the field. But make sure that you have partners, professional partners who you are loyal to, who are able to be there for you in those professional times of need.
You're a baseball fan, and you want to have a great bench, right? So,
100%.
So, chapter 15 is something. It's probably Avanti listeners are probably sick of me talking about this because it is my mantra. But get someone else to do the stuff you suck at, right?
Yeah.
And I think that I know that entrepreneurs are extremely guilty of trying to be all things to all people and doing all things in their company because they think they need to have their hands in everything, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the good entrepreneurs, the good business owners, eventually realize that they have to delegate. Delegate, and as my good friend Darren Hardy says, don't abdicate. Delegate, don't abdicate. What does that mean? Well, set up systems to inspect what you expect. So you said you had a bookkeeper. We have a financial person.
Yes.
My guess, being a creative guy, tell me if I'm wrong, generally speaking, creative guys suck with the detailed financing. Is that your case?
Oh my God, that would be an understatement, I think, in my case. Suck is an understatement.
Yeah.
So, I learned something that really helped my business in a big way. And I think this, for sure, I know this applies to me. I think it probably applies to, I would say, probably every business person in the world. And that is that if I were to ask someone who's really good at financial stuff to help me with the proposal and the fee, as a result of that conversation, I would always charge more than if I had just tried to figure it out myself. Mm-hmm. And I have a financial advisor guru Sherpa named Susie Rashid, who used to be the CFO of my old company. And every single proposal I've ever written in 10 years at Twist, I will write the entire proposal. I will leave the fee line blank, and I will send it to Susie. And she will fill the number in, and she'll send it back to me. And I'll get a massive stomach ache because it'll be, 50% more, 40% more, sometimes 100% more. Sometimes she'll double it. And I'm not kidding. Yeah. And, and I have to get my head around that number because sometimes she really pushes me and sometimes I'll back off it a little bit. But when it comes to financial stuff, getting people to do the stuff you suck at is the most important thing a non-businessy person like me can do. But I would also argue that it's true for just about everybody, that everybody needs a Susie.
Did Susie get laid off too in 2008?
Susie laid me off.
Oh my God. And now she's making you a ton of money. I love it.
Susie laid me off. She was the one who very wonderfully and sincerely laid me off. And then I went back to her some months later and said, "Can you help me get this stuff going?" And she's like, "Of course, absolutely."
Wow.
So that's how good a person. That's how good a person she is. Yeah.
And by pushing you to ask for a lot more in these proposals, needless to say, she's made you a lot of money.
Yes, without a doubt.
That is sweet.
She's the best.
So, Danny, you have another chapter says, now this is very counterintuitive, right?
Yes.
Don't prepare for meetings.
Don't prepare for meetings. Yeah, that's crazy. Who would advise that ever?
Right.
Yeah, so not preparing for meetings.
Apparently, Danny Schuman.
that guy. So yeah, when you don't preparing for meetings is not about not preparing for meetings. Don't prepare for meetings is actually about listening, and not just listening, but active listening.
Mm-hmm.
When you go into a meeting over prepared, you go in ready to over postulate. You go in ready to tell it like it is, give them the answers, tell them what you know, when the main reason for that meeting itself is for you to be able to start finding out how you can help them solve their problems, and become a valuable asset to them. So active listening. So not preparing for meetings is about actively listening. It's about kind of not judging. It's about not thinking in advance how you're going to respond to a question. It's only about making really weird, uncomfortable, direct eye contact and letting that person know that you're honing in on his or her words. You're hearing everything, not just the words they're saying, but the meaning behind the words. And you are then able to really help them solve their problems and add value to their lives.
Awesome.
So it's not about not preparing for meetings. It's about not over preparing for meetings and going in and actively listening.
You may be being a little creepy in these meetings. It sounds great.
It works. So far, so good. 10 years in.
So far, so good. People are loving the eye contact. Huh?
Absolutely.
So what is your feeling about free food? It sounds like it says never underestimate the power of free food in your book.
Yeah. So my dad was an electrical contractor, and every Christmas he would send these giant salamis. My hands are way outside the frame right here, and tins of pistachios to clients. And I basically kind of felt like I built my business the first few years on taking people to lunch, dinner, drinks, and everything. So the chapter is called Never Underestimate the Power of Free Food. It's kind of centered around a great place called Zingerman's in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Oh.
Ding, ding.
Ari's been on my podcast.
Well, Ari's the best, and Ari wrote a quote for my book, and he loved the book. And basically, Zingerman's is the very best place. There's lots of others that are very good place that if you want to impress someone with some really interesting food and get them to start liking you a lot more, get it from Zingerman's.
Love it.
Yeah.
And there's a book on that too. Never Eat Alone by Keith Ferrazzi. Right. Always have a meal with somebody that can maybe help you and you can help them. Right. So,
Absolutely.
So the next chapter that I want to talk about, and this is something that I'm a little ambivalent to say in public, and it's even worse than my book title, Make Love in the Workplace. But chapter 22. Play with yourself. Let's talk about that chapter.
Well, so playing with yourself is a little embarrassing, which is also what I'm about to tell you, David. You're going to love this.
All right.
I want everyone to take a deep breath and take a pause, because the battery on my computer is about to run out and my charger is about 12 feet away. So I need everyone to take a 60-second breather. And I apologize to you and to everyone who's listening. And I will be back in literally 20 seconds.
All right.
David's going to hum. He's going to dance. I'm so sorry. I'll be right back. Oh, this is horribly embarrassing. I'll be right back.
I will try to kill the time. So Avanti listeners, what I want you to do, if you are so inclined, is I would love for you to email at davidmammano.com. And I want you to suggest who should be on my podcast. I am looking for new guests for the 2019 year. And if you have somebody that you would suggest could be on my podcast, I would love that. David at davidmammano.com. Throw me an entrepreneur that you feel would be very inspiring to the Avanti tribe. On that note.
Oh my God.
Danny's back.
That's a story for me to tell.
Yeah.
to everyone who likes me, because it's the most embarrassing story I'll have to tell all week. I'm so sorry about that.
You're a creative, which means you are absent-minded with a lot of other things.
God, so sorry. I'm sorry, Avante Nation.
No problem. Sorry. No problem. So you were talking about playing with yourself.
Yeah. So playing with yourself is at near the end of the book. So the chapters are organized somewhat chronologically. For people who are kind of left-brained, they're kind of chronological. Trust yourself, trust the world, share, do it, and enjoy yourself. Enjoy it. Sorry. So enjoy it is about playing with yourself. being out on our own. I'm sorry. Dave, your face just says it all. That's all I can say. Okay, so being out on your own is hard. It takes a ton of work. And there's a lot of pain involved. You don't have as much of a support system as other people who may not have their own business. And so the idea of enjoy it is so important. And play with yourself is basically about carving out time to do things that you enjoy. Why would you do that? A, because enjoyable things are good for the soul. But B, because personally, I think they help improve your output, your actual work output. There's a direct link between fun and the activity that gets caused in your brain around productivity and where that can lead. And so I'm a strong believer in, even during the day if you want, but certainly on the weekends, taking a little time, watch a video on YouTube, do a little yoga, breathe, do something that turns you on a little bit and that gives you joy. You need to insert joy into your days. It helps improve your attitude and your productivity. So it's really important to play with yourself as often as possible.
Hallelujah. I'm
Hallelujah.
A big believer in that. Gotta laugh and smile every day, right? So the last chapter that I want to tell our listeners about is embrace FONBO. Tell me about FONBO.
FONBO. It's funny. I thought I only had 2 acronyms, but actually in the book, but I actually have 3 apparently. So FONBO is the last of those 3.
Yeah.
And FONBO is the fear of not being original. The fear of not being original. And I think that, I think it's probably wrong to assume that only creatives have FONBO, because I think that anyone who's out in the world of small business and entrepreneurship is in it to create ideas and solve problems. I'll use this last question as a way of going all the way back to the beginning and really what the inspiration for the book was. The inspiration for the book was something I learned from my 100 interviews with entrepreneurs. When I asked them the question, how do you gauge success? What would you think, David? What do you think they said when I said, how do you gauge success? What would the first answer be?
I would say something to do with money.
Well, that's what I thought too. So we are on the same wavelength. And while they always mentioned money, it was almost never first. And they almost always first talked about ideas and the freedom and flexibility to solve problems and come up with ideas. And so I don't think it's just about numbnuts creatives like me who forget to charge their computers during an interview and are creative and want to solve problems and make ideas. I think it's about all entrepreneurs and all small business people, not people who are small, but people who run small businesses, who have FOMO, who have the fear of not being original, and who have this fire in their belly to create something and to make something that can help either themselves, the world, people they know, people they don't know. But the idea of creating something from scratch and doing something new and solving a problem in a really interesting way, I think is, again, part of the Enjoy It chapter. And the idea as a constant reminder of us being out here as entrepreneurs and small business people to do the things that float our boats, that make us happy, that give us joy. And that includes being original with something that we can create.
Beautiful. Danny, I love it. I think what I like about you the most is your humility. You've created a multi-million-dollar, very successful business, and you still call yourself numbnuts. I mean, does it get more humble than that? Come on.
Unfortunately, probably not.
So, Danny, before we go, of course,
Yes,
I gotta ask you about Michael Jordan when you used to work with created endearing nickname for you.
Yeah.
It was Peanut Butter Jelly Boy.
Yes.
And one would think that's because you ate a lot of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, but I'm sensing there's a different reason.
Well, actually, no, it's not. It's actually kind of around peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And I think that the root of the story is that Michael Jordan is probably the most competitive person I've ever met in my entire life. Well, for sure, without a doubt. You don't win 6 NBA championships without winning above everything. And so anything he could use to get a mental edge about anyone, anytime, anywhere he would do. So trash talking in any way, shape, or form existed for him, even if it was at the craft service table at a commercial shoot. And he saw me. So just remember, we are 2 months apart. He's February. I can give you the years if you want. But he was born in February. I was born in April, the same exact year. He always kind of, sort of, I don't know why, gravitated to me. And I was the one he would give a lot of crap to whenever we were together. Yeah. And so the client would always send me to him when they needed to ask him to do something that he didn't want to do. Mm-hmm. So at any opportunity, he would give me the business. And so when he saw me making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, he must have laughed for like 5 minutes straight. He thought it was the funniest thing in the world that a grown-up would be eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich versus like all the culinary delights that were offered at the table. So from then on, maybe it didn't mean all that much, but it gave him like that upper hand on me to call me peanut butter and jelly boy from then on.
That he loved you in his own special way.
That's kind of, I like to think of it that way too.
Very, very, very endearing. Well, and I could totally see why he would come to you. I mean, if you're only listening to this and not watching this, check us out on YouTube as well, because Danny, you just got a face that says like, this guy's got to be a nice guy. Let me go talk to him. I mean, well, that's what your face says.
Thank you. And I just have to say, I've enjoyed meeting you. It's nice that we got to meet in person before we did this interview, because I think the same of you, and I can't wait to hug you the next time I see you.
Oh, big hugs, big hug coming your way. So, Danny, once again, your book, I'm going to hold it up here, The Worst Business Model in the World by Danny Schuman. It's on Amazon.com. And Danny, if people want to get in touch with you other ways, what's the best way to reach out?
Well, as an aside, it's on Amazon and Audible and Kindle, just in case you're curious, and read by the author. And so the business is called Twist. The website is Twist Your Thinking, 3 words mashed into one, twistyourthinking.com. Mm-hmm. The Amazon site for the book, and then also trying to get people as interested in and exposed to the book as possible. We have a Facebook page called Hey You Dots, like Hey You Dots, HEYUDOTS. If you wouldn't mind checking it out, if you like it, like it. That way more people get exposed to it. We try to build this community and get people the help, the resources, the value they could get out of the book and the community. Excellent. So those are the places to reach me.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, dying computers and all.
That was probably the first and last time that will ever happen on one of your podcasts.
Well, I'm glad you chose me. I feel honored. But hey, thanks again, Danny. I wish you massive continued success. You're doing great things, and thank you for all the work you're doing.
Thank you, David. It was a real pleasure. Thanks very much.
Excellent. And thanks for everyone for listening to the Avanti Entrepreneur Podcast. Make sure to check us out on the web at AvantiEntrepreneurGroup.com, where this interview will be housed forever, plus over 100 more podcast interviews, show notes, etc. AvantiEntrepreneurGroup.com. Make it a great day and stay awesome.
Thank you for listening. Head over to AvantiEntrepreneurGroup.com for show notes and more helpful advice from entrepreneurs like you. Continue to find your entrepreneurial rhythm at the Avanti Entrepreneur Podcast.